Perfect.
Perfect. All right. So thank you for those of you who are here today and anybody catching the replay. I'm very excited to dive into a bit about my own story, my entrepreneurial journey, as well as going into an exploration of ideation and some of the foundational questions and kind of cornerstones for coming up with a profitable business idea and something that you're actually passionate about doing as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got some slides for you guys today. We're going to chat through a few things. This is very conversational, so feel free to send questions in the chat if you have them along the way. And I'm going to set aside quite a bit of time at the end for open-ended Q&A. So you are welcome to ask anything. I'm an open book. Give me just a moment to share and then we'll dive right in. All right. All right, Jeffrey, are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So getting into it, my name is Megan. I am a licensed holistic therapist and have been in private practice in the mental health space for a little over 10 years now. But my background is originally in entrepreneurship. I studied business development, entrepreneurship, and service leadership in undergrad before going on to become a therapist and then ultimately starting some businesses in the wellness and mental health space. So I'm also the CEO and founder of the self-care space, which I will be talking about quite a bit in this conversation and presentation today. I am the founder of two online businesses, two 501c3 nonprofits, and I have been a business development consultant to four early stage startups. So I really enjoy the process of business development. It's a lot of fun for me to be a part of ideation and creation and really bringing an idea from concept to reality. And that's really what the process of ideation is. It's not a complicated term at all. I think sometimes in the business world, we do complicate it a lot more than it needs to be, when ideation really gets to be the fun part of the process. It's the creative part of the process. It can be collaborative and connected and expansive. And it should be something that, while it may be frustrating at times, is something that draws a lot of inspiration and motivation from different areas of your life that hopefully really light you up. So simply put, ideation is just the formation of ideas or concepts, all the way from the brainstorming stage to practical application in real life. And I want to kind of call out or bust one myth to begin with. There's this quote on here: it all starts with an idea. You've probably heard that before. And I think a lot of people get stuck on that premise of it starting with an idea, and we try to reach for the idea first. But the reality is, for most profitable business ideas, it didn't start with the idea, it started with a problem. It started with somebody identifying a problem and coming up with a creative solution from there. So that's the lens that I share about ideation from. And again, I'm going to share a little bit about some tangible steps that you can apply to your own entrepreneurial journey, and then I'll share a bit about mine as well. So just kind of laying out the basics first, like if we're going from start to finish of the entrepreneurial journey of bringing a concept into the marketplace and understanding where ideation fits into that, I want to outline some really key steps here. And maybe you've already thought of a concept, you can kind of apply each of these stages to see where you're at, or you can take notes and apply some questions I'll share later on if you're in the stage of like, I want to come up with an idea and I don't know where to start. That first step really is identifying the problem or the need at hand. And I think sometimes Jeffrey alluded to this before, we can come up with really grandiose ideas and really cool platforms or projects or concepts, because in theory, they sound like this really great thing. Like if it existed in the world, this would be so fun. But we forget to ask the question, what problem is this solving? Most people make purchases from the perspective of pain points first, and wanting to fill a gap in their life, a problem that they have, a need that they have, or improving on a solution that already exists. So a lot of the inspiration that you'll likely get for your most successful ideas will come from your day-to-day lived experience. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit and give you some tangible questions to begin to use for your own brainstorming and reflection process. But we always start there, identifying the problem or need. And then we go into the creative process, brainstorming solutions to that problem. what would it be like if this were different? What would be a potential solution to this problem? How could I evolve a solution that already exists to make it even better, to make it more unique, to refine it, right? And when I mention the words like collaboration and connection, that really does get to be the part of the process where you involve other people in the discussion, because sometimes we have sort of blinders on. We have tunnel vision and we only can see things from our unique lived experience and our limited perspective, which has a lot of value, but we also want to gather feedback from the people around us, which leads us into the market research stage of the entrepreneurial journey. And I think this is one of the most, if not the most vital stages of the entire process, is taking all your ideas out to people who have the problem that you're trying to solve and getting their feedback, asking them what it's like to live with this particular problem, asking them about their pain points and where they're stuck and where they're frustrated and things that they wish could be different, and presenting some of the ideas that you have and getting their feedback. And you might get really great feedback off the bat, and they might have buy-in right away and say, oh my gosh, if that existed, that would be amazing. Or they might give you ideas for refinement. They might help clue you in to things that you weren't seeing with your tunnel vision on. And so even before you've gotten a product or solution or any sort of resource to the marketplace, you might pivot. And that will save you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of R&D to be able to get that feedback before the thing is actually created. So market research before we come to that point of then selecting an idea, like which one does have the most buy-in, and being able to come up with a minimum viable product. We don't need it to be the absolute best with all the bells and whistles, like our biggest vision of the end product. We just need it to be the minimum viable solution that the market would respond to. So once we do that, once we get something out there, we can start gathering even more feedback. We go to market and we can ask people how they're enjoying this solution that we presented to their problem. And again, this is a crucial step that a lot of people forget. They think I've got something out there and now I just need to market it and push, push, push. But we actually want to continue to ideate even when the product that we've created, the solution that we've created, is already out in the market. As you continue to gather feedback, that's where you refine. You refine your strategy and you implement any revisions or updates or evolutions to the product. You don't want to necessarily make changes too often and too quickly, right? But you also don't want to stagnate. So being really attuned to how can I evolve based on the feedback I'm getting. And then once you've gotten to that point where you've established a really great audience, that you have kind of a foothold in your market and you've gathered great feedback and testimonials, then you can focus on scaling and growing and expanding your revenue. And so those 7 stages of the entrepreneurial journey are crucial, right? We don't want to skip any one of them. And where does the idea of ideation fit in? You might think it's just that first step, identify a problem or need and brainstorm solutions. But ideation actually fits into every step of the entire process. Ideation isn't a one and done. You don't come up with the idea and that's it. You're constantly going back to the drawing board and asking good questions to explore, how can I refine this idea? How can I make it a better fit for what the market is looking for? Okay, so I'll share a little bit about how this applies to my own journey with starting the self-care space in a moment, but I really wanted to focus here on this idea that as you're going through every stage of the process and you're coming up with ideas, you really want to be desire and solution oriented at every stage of that process that we went through. Once you've identified the problem, like it all starts with the problem, not the idea. From there, we want to focus on what's actually the solution, like what's the desired outcome that my customer wants, and how can I speak to what's possible for them when this pain point no longer exists. And that I found to be such a valuable skill to hone, because it not only supports you in creating a better product, but it also supports your marketing efforts as well. If you can speak to the desires of your customer as well as their pain points, and you can speak to how your solution is the unique fit for those particular desires, it's kind of like built-in marketing strategy right there. You're learning the language that your customer speaks, and a lot of that will come from your market research and understanding the language that they use and the nuance about how they speak, about their their problem, their pain point, and how they speak about their desire and what they wish were different. So what this looked like for me with the self-care space, which is a self-guided therapy platform and mental health community for women. It's essentially a virtual digitized space where women can go through little kind of mini therapy journeys. They can guide themselves through various topics, like improving their self-talk and body image, improving their relationships, things like that. And it exists in a way that when I had started it, I had never seen anything like this platform exist before. And I had been in practice in the mental health space at that point in time for about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. And I identified the problem that I was going to solve when I was actually introduced to a new market. I was brought on to consult for a company that primarily worked with young women in the health and wellness space. And I was brought on to do some workshops with them about mental health. And I saw pretty quickly through my conversations with the women in this organization that there was a real need for more affordable and accessible mental health resources that they could take at their own pace. Like, I was seeing that traditional talk therapy wasn't for everyone, and a lot of them didn't necessarily have mental health benefits through their insurance. They were really busy with school and work and being a 20-something, and didn't necessarily have time to fit in appointments like that, but they were really interested in personal growth. And so how could they find a way to do this inner work and explore their relationship with themselves and learn new therapeutic tools to support their mental health without fitting into this traditional mental health model that we're sort of used to in our healthcare system? And I recognized myself a lot in their story, in the things that I was hearing from them, and the experiences that we were connecting on in the workshop. And for me, that's honestly one of the kind of best indicators that you're touching upon a great idea in the business space. If you can empathize with a problem that a group of people are having, it's got that kind of universality to it. Like, oh, this isn't just me. I'm not the only person who ever struggled with that. Like, yeah, those are resources I wish I had, but these are also resources that a lot of other people out there are clearly indicating that they would like as well. So when I recognized that and started to come up with this concept for a self-guided therapy membership and getting curious about how I could use various kind of tech platforms that were available or options that I might explore to make this come to life. Before I even got to the point of investing any money in the creation of an MVP, I did the market research first. Like I mentioned, it was so important for me to validate this sort of hypothesis I had and get feedback from women who would be my ideal customer. So that happened just through casual conversation, and then eventually through structured focus groups and surveys. And I was really intentional about asking questions and presenting this idea to see if it's something that would be well received. And when I refined it through that process and got validation that yes, this is something they were looking for, that's when I went into the R&D phase of exploring possible tech solutions for the platform. And I know that a lot of you are probably much more tech savvy and proficient than I am. My background, like I said, is in business and the mental health space. So I knew that that was going to be a bit of a blind spot for me. And I had to do some work to really get clear on what would be the best and most efficient solution for the platform that I was trying to create. And I ended up identifying a company that was essentially great at using their technology to white label apps. And that was going to be the easiest way for me to get this platform to market, the quickest and the most efficient. So after I identified the solution that I wanted to use, that's when I went into the process of actually mapping out and planning the content, creating the platform. And all the while, I was still beginning to generate hype. So I had an ongoing wait list. I was beginning to market to some of that original audience that I was introduced to and starting to spread the word about this new thing that was coming. I utilized things like affiliate partnerships and having women who had audiences of the types of communities I was going for begin to share about what I was doing and what was coming. So by the time I launched the platform in October of 2020, I actually already had a wait list of about 5,000 women who wanted to join the platform. And that was really key. Taking the time to, while the work was being done behind the scenes to create the product, to actually be talking about it and promoting it and generating the hype. And in the 3.5 years since then, we've been growing and refining the concept of the platform every year. I do annual focus groups, checking in with our members and with non-members, asking them what they're looking for, continuing to really refine the goals and vision of the company and make sure that we're not stagnating. And so ideation continues to be a part of the process in this particular business, even 4 years into the journey of already having launched it out into the world. So you can see that ideation really isn't a one and done. It is an ongoing conversation and learning to ask really good questions, which again, I'll talk about in just a moment. But for me, two of the biggest things that I've learned throughout my own journey and that I really like to impart on other young entrepreneurs is the first is to lead with your lived experience. I think so often hopeful entrepreneurs lead with kind of monetary desire, like we want to make money from our businesses. So we try to think about like, what's the thing that's going to make the most money? But if you lead from a place of lived experience of like, what have been some of my struggles, my pain points, what are things that I could empathize with other people on really well, you will much more intimately understand the problem and create a much better solution than if you were just trying to identify the biggest moneymaker. And it really often does come down to the most simple, everyday problems. If you can identify an everyday problem that someone has, it's going to be much more advantageous than a really kind of big, flashy, exciting idea that only a few people are going to benefit from. So really tuning into like that reflection of what are problems that I can empathize with other people about, because it's something that I've experienced myself, or I can put myself in their shoes. And again, those really simple solutions. So this is kind of a silly story, but I like to share it when we're talking about ideation, because it is a great representation of how ideas can come from just your everyday problems. When I was little, we used to go on kind of like beach trips. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and it's probably not a place you would think of as a beach place, but there are a couple beaches up here on the Puget Sound, and it's very cold. And so you kind of need to bring like a lot of things with you when you go to the water here to, account for wind and different weather and make sure you've got like all the things you need. If you're going to any beach, of course, you're going to need like sunblock and sunscreen and all these various things. And so when my mom used to pack everything for us when we were little, she was always really frustrated about like losing things and not having a place for everything. And so she really loved to sew, and she took these big beach towels and essentially sewed big pockets into them, zippered pockets where we could put things like our goggles and our sunscreen, sunglasses, things like that, just to make it easier. So we each had our own little thing that we weren't going to lose. And it was a really great solution. And lots of her friends ended up asking her to make them for them. And she's not an entrepreneur and didn't really have any interest in starting a business, but there was already all this hype being generated just by this simple solution that she created from an everyday problem. And a couple of decades later, actually, my brother took that idea and turned it into a business. And I love that example because it really does show you how the most creative ideas can come from the smallest problems. And it might not seem like something that would make that big of an impact, but then you see, oh, other people are having this problem too. Great, there's a market for this. And that's when you can begin the process of market research. So that's my biggest takeaway. Number one is make sure you're leading with lived experience and seeing what problems you can see yourself reflected in. And then the second biggest thing is really understanding your market. So you can identify when it's a problem that you've had, but you also need to make sure you're asking the question, is this the problem that enough other people have as well? So again, identifying whether or not an idea is broadly relevant, right? Is this a me problem? Is this a very niche problem? Or is this something that a significant degree of people are struggling with? That answer comes through asking good questions, through asking a lot of people, through surveying, through crowdsourcing ideas from your friends, your family, your peers, colleagues, asking them about the things they're struggling with in their day-to-day life. Sometimes you can get the best ideas through just listening to what somebody else is going through. And again, being able to empathize with their journey. And I'm sure you saw that at every stage in that process of the entrepreneurial journey and every stage of my process of launching the self-care space, asking good questions, doing research with my ideal demographic, my target audience, was such a vital part of making sure I had a profitable business idea before I spent all this time and invested all this money in something that maybe wasn't going to work. And if I could give any piece of advice, it would be to learn to ask better questions. It's not just, is this something that you would use, but asking like, how would you use this? How big of a problem is this for you? How much time do you spend worrying about this particular thing? How worth it is it for you to have a solution to this problem? And refining the questions you ask so that you can get better answers, so that you can get better feedback as you continue to move forward in the process of business development. So I wanted to give you now a few questions that you can jot down on your own. If you want to take a couple minutes right now to answer some of these, you're more than welcome to, or screenshot this slide. This can be a great place to start when you're thinking about where do I begin? Like, I want to come up with a good idea, or maybe I have like some threads of good ideas, but how do I weave them together into something more? Starting to ask yourself first, like, what do I complain about the most? What are the things I talk about over and over again? Is it that it's really hard to date in my community and I wish there was a better way to do that? Is it something related to school or the workplace or my commute? Kind of tuning into those daily problems, and then beginning to ask your friends, family, peers, colleagues, if that's something they struggle with too, refining that idea more and more. You can ask yourself what's something that you wish were different or easier or more accessible. Accessibility is huge for problem solving. Again, in your day-to-day life, this isn't like a once every 5 years kind of problem you want to solve. It's an everyday problem that you want to solve. And make sure you're asking, how many people does this problem apply to? Is it just me, or is this an actually broadly relevant problem? Does this apply to a large group of people? So you want to make sure that you've got a big enough market to market to. And then I'm a big fan for getting clear on your motivation as well. Like, why do you want to start a business in general? Why do you want to start this business? Because there will be many times in the journey where it's difficult, where it's challenging, where you are met with experiences that make you question why you're doing this, and if you want to throw in the towel or not. And if you have a strong motivator for the reason that you are pursuing this particular business, like for me, I can't imagine a world in which these resources that I share as a therapist aren't broadly, widely available for the younger versions of me who wished that I had had a resource like that, and my friends who'd wished they had resources like that, and wondering like what kind of difference it would have made to have access to these kind of tools earlier on. So it's really just a kind of non-negotiable. It's not a question for me when I face difficulties in the business, that this is something I'm motivated to continue to do and to persevere through those difficulties, because my idea is something I so strongly empathize with. And then, of course, you can always ask yourself, what is it that makes your idea different or unique to what's out there? Sometimes we come up with a really great idea, but if it's not all that different than something that's already on the market and successfully kind of capturing a really big percentage of the market, we want to make sure we're differentiating enough. So a lot of places for you to begin to reflect, but honestly, I'm a really kind of conversational person. I would love to hear from you guys. If you have questions about ideas that you have about the ideation process or the entrepreneurial journey, I would love to just clue into what's going on for you guys. So this is an open-ended ask anything about the process, about my businesses. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen just so I can see the chat, but I'm happy to pull up any slides that you guys were wanting to see again. Here we go. Okay, I see a question in the chat already, so I'll just dive in there. Was it difficult finding a way to make the environment feel immersive since it's conducted virtually, or did being virtual help since it made it flexible for people with busy lives to take part in? That's a really great question, Stefan. It's kind of like a both and. I definitely wanted it to feel autonomous for the people who did just want to take this at their own pace and not feel obligated to participate in anything that was live or immersive. Some people really feel, vulnerable going into the exploration of these kind of topics, and mental health can be a very sensitive issue. Um, so the platform is structured in such a way that it can be fully autonomous, and there are lots of touch points for people who do actually want more support at an affordable rate. So we have things like group coaching sessions every month. We have live events, or live meaning live on Zoom, live events and workshops with therapists and psychologists and other types of practitioners where people can learn about different tools and mental health topics. And we had kind of a handful of other options for people who were looking for more of that connectivity component. And I decided to build in a community chat feature to the platform as well. So almost like a social feed where people can share their experiences, ask questions, get feedback, so that there's this sense of not being alone in the journey. And for me, that was actually a really important part of the ideation process in identifying the right tech solution for us, because I knew that I wanted it to not just be like a teachable platform where it was just an online course. I wanted the community element. I wanted the live Zoom element to it. So when you're thinking about your idea and all the different components and things that you want to include, and you're validating that each of those would be beneficial to your ideal demographic, note that there might also be like subsets of your ideal demographic. We primarily work with young women, but there are the young women who want to go through this process on their own versus the ones who want more connection and community. So that nuance is definitely important to clue into. And it's a great question. What
Um,
else? Yeah, Jeffrey.
just to stimulate the conversation a bit, I think maybe let's call on, I think we have a small group, so let's actually maybe just call on each student individually and see what people may be working on. Um,
Sure.
I think there's another question from Stefan before we maybe do that.
Yeah. And I'll let you call people out after this one.
Mhm.
Do you think that building a relationship for your audience was crucial for the immediate success of your business? Also, do you think that it's necessary for most businesses to do so? Yeah, another great question. I think for my business specifically, that was a really vital component because, again, the nature of trusting somebody with your mental health um, is a very vulnerable thing. And I think establishing that baseline of trust through relationship building and letting them get to know who I was. I didn't mention this in the timeline, but I should have. Leading up to that launch date in October 2020, and then even after the launch, I offered a lot of free events and workshops and opportunities for um, potential customers to meet me and some of the other therapists and teachers on the platform and let them get a feel for who we were and what it was going to be about. And having that established relationship with them is kind of akin to like if you're meeting with a new therapist for the first time and you get like a free 15 or 30 minutes intro call or session with them to see, is this person the right fit for me? So I definitely knew that that was going to be an important component of this business. And that's why I took the time to do that for probably about 6 to 8 months before launching. Um, do I think that it's necessary for most businesses to do that? Not necessarily. If you're like a product-based business, um, you definitely don't need as much lead time to generate hype. If you are a like tech solution platform in any way, obviously you want enough people to have used your platform to be able to generate kind of word of mouth. So something like a beta round or a beta phase for your product or service or platform might be the way to go. There's definitely a lot of different avenues that you can take. But the more feedback you can get, of course, before the official launch and going to market, the better.
Yeah, great questions and answer. Um, so maybe we can start with Stefan. Stefan, you have some questions. Would you mind turning your mic on and maybe just telling us
Oh yeah.
a little bit about what you are working on? Are you a student entrepreneur? Are you looking to start something? Where are you on your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, currently I'm a student. I would say I'm still in like the ideation phase. I'm a tech student trying to pursue something like the AI realm because AI is like the new big thing, and I've been learning like a lot about the technologies and stuff.
Okay.
I'm oh, yeah, you can
No, I'm listening.
yeah. I'm kind of like in the brainstorming phase because I just want to like understand, is there like a certain market I should look into? Should my solution to the problem be pretty complex, or should I go like the simple route and try and mess around with that? Should I like clearly as a student I won't be able to like pay for advertising, so should I like build up like a following, or like a fan base on like Twitter or like a social media platform or something, and then release my product there with like some hype behind it before it actually gets released. I'm just unsure. I'm just like in the beginning phases essentially.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I'll speak to that for a moment.
Yeah.
My honestly, my best advice, especially as a student, is to take advantage of the fact that you are a student and to not put pressure on yourself to have like come up with the next business unicorn that's going to make $1 billion like next year, right? This is the time for you to try things, to experiment, to throw any of your good ideas at the wall and see what sticks while you have the support of a community around you. Like you have the support of your professors and clubs like this one and people on campus who can validate your ideas and give you feedback and help you brainstorm. You have the support of a whole student body who you can survey and ask questions about your ideas. And so when you ask, like, I don't know if it should be something that's a more complex solution or not, I think the more you can get to like dropping perfection and being able to just try things with the resources that are available to you now, the more feedback you'll gather. And for most people, it takes a lot of time to get to the right business idea. It takes years of lived experience and business experience. And yes, there are so many wonderful success stories of people who came up with something early on in their entrepreneurial journey or dropped out of college and started something that went on to become huge. And that absolutely can be done. I'm not saying it can't, but I think looking at the entrepreneurial journey as more of a marathon and something that you're in for the long game and something where you're continuously learning to ask new questions and refine your vision, that's going to be your best bet. So yes, if there is like an area of expertise you're interested in, you mentioned like starting to share content on a platform, be it Twitter or any other social media platform, building an audience is always going to be a great investment. So if you do have an a passion or area of expertise that you enjoy sharing about, building a sense of community around that is going to be an incredible asset for you because, again, you can pull those people when you do hit on an idea that you're like, ooh, I think this might be something. You can share that with your followers, your email list, your community, whoever it is, and be able to gather feedback from people who could actually be potential customers for you. So that's definitely something I'd recommend taking advantage of. And like just give yourself permission to experiment and get it wrong and let it be messy. And eventually you'll hit on something that works.
Thank you. Yeah, I do like just like experimenting with different things too. I'll definitely try that out. Just like do it essentially, see what
Yeah, pretty
happens.
much.
Yeah, thank
I've
you.
seen a lot of people who are kind of would be like want to be entrepreneurs wrestling with the same idea for years, like over a decade, even trying to get it just right, get it just perfect, doing the research and never actually going to market because they're afraid of getting it wrong. And that's not a business. That's not an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur is somebody who goes to market, fails, tries again, and
Yeah,
actually gets out there and finds customers. And there is no such thing as perfect. So
yeah, failure is key, I will say. Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, and just to build a little bit upon what Megan was saying, you mentioned a bit about how you want to start an AI startup. And I know AI is a very hot buzzword right now, and everyone's trying to do AI. But you should maybe think from the perspective of not how can I build something using AI, but what is a tangible process that people are doing manually that they don't want to do manually anymore that you can maybe automate. A simple example is Calendly. Are you familiar with Calendly by any chance?
Kind of.
Yeah,
I
so
believe I heard of it
Calendly.
before. Yeah.
Okay, so how Calendly is it's a simple, technically it's a simple AI tool, right? I mean, now there's a whole lot more of automation features built in, but when Calendly was first started, all it was doing was just pretty much scanning someone's calendar to find an opening and saying, hey, there's an open slot on someone's calendar. I don't think the founder of Calendly was saying, hey, I need to build something using AI. I think he realized, hey, there is so much time and effort that goes into scheduling meetings, right? Think about even maybe scheduling a meeting with your career advisor. You got to email them. they got to see when they have an opening on their schedule, then they got to email you. Then you got to see where's your openings, and you see how there's all these back and forth, and then now there's this tool that automates that process. So if you're thinking about AI, think about things that people are having challenges with manually that you're seeing, and then say, hey, can I automate this process, right? Something as simple as Calendly, where it's just automating this process of scheduling meetings, literally turned into like a huge multi-billion-dollar business, right? This wasn't this huge, crazy AI idea. It was just like, hey, people have a hard time scheduling meetings. Like, you got to think about it. There's literally staff that is hired. Like, when you think about like admins and people's assistants, right? A big part of their job is just literally to schedule meetings and see when someone is available. Now they built this tool. Now you don't necessarily have to hire all this staff, and it saves everyone time and it saves everyone energy. And yeah, so is what I'm saying resonating with you, Stefan?
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking about that too, like in general, like just try to do something simple essentially. Don't try to like go for like the next big thing. Just mess around in the field, tackle a simple problem that you come across and see what happens, essentially. That's what I'm getting from that.
Yeah, I want to put this out there. I specifically chose Megan for this workshop. And Megan, I don't want to put you on the spot like this, but Megan is actually literally, in terms of just purely revenues, Megan is probably one of the most successful founders that came out of our program. Just, if you're just doing it based on revenues, because you don't fundraise, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, we
So,
don't.
without fundraising or anything. And if you go to her website, there's a huge staff, there's a huge team. I know Megan seems very nice and friendly on this call, but I think from the business tip, she's a little bit of a beast. Um, but I'm using Megan as an example, as in, who wouldn't necessarily think that therapy would be this big idea, right? We have people that's building all kind of things, all kind of AI, all kind of software, right? But she realized like there's a huge market for therapy services. Like, you don't have to really go out and build like the next you know, Tesla or whatever, right? You can really just find a simple problem that people need access to. Um, and another thing that I always say too is sometimes too, and I know in the world of like venture capital, everyone's thinking about the next billion-dollar idea. If you are a talented coder, you can literally build a six-figure business just building websites and apps for people. If you're a person who's making $500,000 a year for the next like 6, 7 years, like you're living really well. Like, I know sometimes, in social media, it's like, if unless you're a millionaire or a billionaire, you're irrelevant. And that is just not realistic in the business world. There's a lot of people who are, earning 200K, 300K, 500K, and they're independent, they're free, they have a good business, they serve their customers, and they also don't take on too much stress. That's another thing too. On the flip side, everyone wants a billion-dollar idea. Sometimes running a billion-dollar company is a lot of stress, a lot of headaches. You have a lot of investors. You have to answer to the public. If the public, like, sometimes you see like these tech CEOs getting grilled, so just putting it out there, like nothing wrong with keeping it simple, nothing wrong with looking around you and saying, hey, what is something that I can simply provide? Just using Megan again as an example, due to your background in therapy, mental health services is just something that you were able to easily provide to the people around you. And then they liked it, and then they referred other people, and I'm sure you did your marketing thing, and that's how it grew. So I'm just doubling down on keeping it simple. Look at what skill sets you have that you can do something with, and just provide simple things to people. You don't. It doesn't have to be rocket science. I know social media and the culture of venture capital and big tech makes it feel that way. But in the real world, there's a lot of people making a lot of money doing simple things. Another great example, not tech related. Um, I'm sure like whoever makes the number two pencils might be like a billion-dollar family, and all they do is make
Yes,
pencils, you know. Um, so yeah, if you want to connect more, Stefan, definitely happy to help give you some mentoring after the call.
definitely. I would love that. Thank you. And thank you, Megan, for coming on to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
Yes.
for your questions.
No worries.
Yes. The next person I'm seeing here is Nang. I hope I'm saying your name properly. Nang, would you like to come off of mute and maybe just share a little bit about what you're trying to work on, if you have a company or you're looking to start one? Oh, Nang is here. Okay. Maybe we'll come back to Nang. Angela, would you like to come off speaker? Nope. Okay. We have the last two. Priscilla. Priscilla, are you working on anything? Are you looking to be a startup founder or?
Hello, it's Priscilla.
Yes, how
Hi,
you doing,
Priscilla.
Priscilla?
Um, right now, I I just I just got into entrepreneurship because like I was into real estate first, and that got me thinking, how would I how do I merge real estate with business? So I am trying my family and I we're just it's in the early stages right now, but we're thinking of like opening up an online shop.
That's great. Yeah, I love, when you're able to kind of merge or combine industries or areas of expertise. That's often when really innovative, creative ideas can come to light. And specifically in that realm, I have a good friend of mine whose background was in business development, and he had several friends in the real estate space. And a few years ago, I think 2021, perhaps, they launched a company out of California called True Parity, which is essentially an alternative real estate app, alternative way of buying and selling homes. And this year, in year 2 or 3 of their business, they've raised, I think, over 25 million in capital, and have a really wonderful, like, thriving startup. And obviously there's a lot of challenges that come along with that as well, but it just came from, a couple friends getting together and asking each other questions about, like, what are the pain points in your industry, what are you seeing, and brainstorming creative solutions together. So I love that you're already thinking about how you can use your background and experience for kind of exploring solutions on your entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, thank you for that, Megan. And Priscilla, can I ask, what are you looking to do in real estate? Like, are you guys looking to buy a property or looking to be a real estate broker? Like, what are you looking to do exactly?
Well, it's I'm looking to like be a real estate agent first of all. Then as I get more experience, hopefully buy a property and from there grow my business.
Yeah, well, I want to say that at least when it comes to real estate, it is a very proven business model, so it's not like you're going into uncharted territory, so you might look up into things like, how to build a successful real estate investing operation. Keeping it simple is more so about, like, how do you identify properties that are either undervalued or properties that you can do things to extract more value. When I say extract more value, for example, you might just see like a empty building, I don't know, somewhere in Manhattan, and you might say, hey, let me put a retail store on the first floor, and that'll maybe generate more revenue for the property, So I think you're going the right way, get your real estate license, learn the field, learn how deals are made, understand why people are buying and selling. And I think, once you get in there, you'll figure your way out, and definitely do your research. Real estate is a proven business model, and a lot of people are making millions of dollars all the time doing real estate deals.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I know a lot of people who started, really simply and humbly, just building a small real estate investment portfolio, and focusing on that in their 20s and 30s, and then were able to use that capital to invest in their business ideas later on. Because, as Jeffrey said, it is a proven business model, and it's kind of a slow and steady wins the race thing, but it can be incredibly lucrative if you stick to it.
Hmm.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yes, thank you, Priscilla. And Rachel, we have you last. If you'd like to maybe just come on.
I don't really have like a specific idea in mind. I just joined to hear from others and to learn.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And I want to say that's a great step one. Sometimes people don't want to take the time to hear from others and just come learn, and hopefully this helps give you a good foundation in ideation. I think that's a very important thing, right? When you're starting out, just taking the right approach. Because not taking the right approach, you will come to learn that it will cost you a lot of money.
And a lot of headaches.
Yes. Okay, so this is our workshop for today. Thank you so much all for joining us. I'm gonna stop the recording. Let me stop the recording.